down there for that second sequence.
Good afternoon, everyone. Time is now 2:04, and I call to order the meeting of the Orange County Sewer District Number 1 Advisory Committee for Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. A copy of the agenda for this meeting may be found on the county website under the tab for the legislature. Please silence your phones and devices. And at this time, please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Kelly. Can you do roll call?
Yes, Emo. Here. Manelli. Amy.
Here.
Ellers. Hotel. Here. Two.
Here.
Four present.
All right, first up, we have item number 1. We have Richard Golden, Esquire, County Attorney, Joe Mahoney, Esquire, Senior Assistant County Attorney, Anthony Griffin, Consultant, Department of Public Works and EF&S, and Mary Beth Bianconi, Partner, Delaware Engineering. You guys want to come on down?
Wasn't me, Joe.
Kelly, can you also make note that Town of Monroe Supervisor Tony Cardone is in attendance as well? All right, so first up, we have our design phase update for the Harriman wastewater treatment plant. And specifically, I'd like to also add to this an update where we stand with the public comment area and how that's being handled and how it will unfold with the comments being addressed.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Enough there?
That issue that came up about the financing coming to this committee, could you fix that through just on the record?
Excuse me?
On the action by the
Well, yeah.
legislature?
There's the
part of
two
the
steps that we
preliminary,
have to go through
Make sure
to
it's-
get before we go to finance.
Fine, I just want, yeah.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mary Beth Bianconi. I'm a partner with Delaware Engineering. And as the chairman acknowledged, we have kind of two pieces here. We have the technical update, and then we have the financing. And actually, the comments are actually part of the financing discussion because they were at the hearings for the financing. So we can kind of, go through these things. So I just handed out our monthly sewer committee update with respect to the technical work that's being undertaken. We met here on on March 18th, and our review and design workshop meeting was actually the next day, March 19th. That's the same sequence as this month. Our technical meeting is actually tomorrow with the staff. But on March 19th, the project review and design workshop meeting covered reviewing Train 3 filter building improvements, the sludge handling and disposal plans, the SBR or sequencing batch reactor system layout and discussion items, Orange and Rockland utilities coordination and DOT status. Folks may recall that we are looking to secure a secondary access to the site on some lands that are access lands of DOT. So we are coordinating with them for either land acquisition or an easement or something along those lines, in the rural property and among other things. So those were the technical discussions at the last meeting. The survey for the site has been completed since the end of the year. So that one's all done. The asbestos and lead survey, Ambient Environmental was the respondent for that RFQ. And we still don't have a mobilization date from them. They originally stated mid-April. We are at mid-April. So we will be following up with them to find out when they will begin. And just for folks as a reminder, the reason we're doing a lead and asbestos survey is because we have some building demolition that we will be accomplishing. And prior to doing that, we need a lead and asbestos survey for these structures because they date back to before the 1970s or in the 1970s when those materials were still used in construction.
Mary
The-
Beth, was there a hard date set in the agreement with Ambient?
So when they responded to our RFQ, they stated that they could meet this schedule. We are now working to get them to provide a hard date. So. They are like many companies here. They're very busy. I think they load themselves up with lots and lots of work, which is a good thing, but it does mean scheduling becomes a challenge. It's not standing in the way of design, but it is on the path to get done.
Thank you.
The geotech RFP is being issued actually today. That includes the buoyancy mitigation and the shoring design. So that we expect to have responses back in 2 weeks' time. So we should be able to report on that at our May meeting here, where we stand with that. That is, again, kind of part of the critical path. So we'll be looking for scheduled performance from those respondents. And the basis design report, the final version for this speedies application was actually submitted on March 21st, which kind of rolls into our regulatory status. People may recall that in December, we had a meeting with DEC. We were requesting specifically information, in particular about phosphorus limits for this plant because they have a design implication. DEC had indicated that the best way for us to get that information was to get draft permit limits, which would come from submitting a speedies application. We had always intended to submit our speedies application in the March timeframe, March to April timeframe. This actually was accomplished. We submitted the speedies application form as well as the basis design report, the preliminary outfall design, the DEC and core wetland jurisdictional determination information, something called a notice of anticipated noncompliance. This is for during construction when we will be taking unit processes offline and we may not meet our permit. So there's a regulatory process we go through to acknowledge that. And something called the supplemental climate risk form was submitted all back on March 21st. So that is now in DEC's hands. We will be following up with them in the near future to see if we can schedule a technical review meeting for them to walk through the permit, as we have done with the notice of incomplete application for the variance and some other actions here. It's very helpful to do this with the DEC and get feedback. The notice of incomplete application, NOIA2, was submitted to DEC on the variance for the variance on February 3rd. We received an acknowledgement that they received it and we've not heard anything additional from them.
Do you expect some further requests from them?
We do. It's going to be an iterative process. So we do expect them to continue. As we've discussed before, the variance application is this variance application that we're talking about in item 2 under regulatory status is actually for the current permit we have. It's for the 6 million gallon day plant. So this is part of our ongoing compliance work under that speedies permit. And DEC is not at this point determined how they will process this. Will it be a new permit? As we know, our permit a permit for the wastewater treatment plant had a regulatory date to end, I believe it was March 1st, or maybe it was
February 1st.
February.
TDS
February 1st.
Compliance.
So we received back in the fall a notice of extension of that permit. So that permit has been administratively extended for an indeterminate amount of time. And this gives DEC some latitude to determine how they want to handle these issues, which I think is to our benefit, to have that latitude. And then with respect to that permit, we had submitted a renewal. This is what we were just talking about for our existing permit back in 2020. I believe we submitted it before 2023. but on March 17th, we submitted additional information that was requested by the DEC regarding that permit renewal. And they do have that, for their processing. Again, we need to follow up with them on stairs for review. So that's the technical update, unless anybody has any.
And just going back up to the first points for the DOT status, and now how much and what kind of easements do you possibly need that you're discussing with them?
Do you want
Yeah.
details?
Old 17, year 17, we're trying to get an access where the filter buildings are. We have to be able to access the rear of the facility. The sequencing batch reactors that are going to go in, and the expansion that we're going to do is going to cut off that entire back end of the plant. So we need an alternate access. We can't just expect to access that area with a crane, with heavy equipment from River Road. So our ideal location would be to have access off of Route 17. We're also running up against when the second.
Is that state land or?
That is state, that is
It's
state.
DOT.
So the other problem is that where the further expansion of the second sequencing batch reactor is very close to the property line. We really need some relaxation there if we can get it to be able to put that tank in without having some, obstruction occurring in that area. So what we're looking to do ideally is to get a segment of property, the addition, the access, as well as some additional property to be able to put the sequencing batch reactor in. We have a fallback, which is a possible access off of Evergreen Road. If you know the area there, you have a retaining wall and it's very steep. And in order to get heavy equipment through there, there would be a huge curve that you would have to negotiate, as well as a steep grade that you would have to go down. So ideally, we think that we'll have the justification for the entrance, and hopefully we'll have, some of the property there.
And so we wouldn't be acquiring any land from the DOT, but we'd be getting an easement.
Well, we would, I think that it typically goes that they don't usually like to relinquish property, but we may be able to get a right of way to be able to do all the needs that we have.
Once you get all that equipment back out of there, get it back to the way it was, and
It would not be a construction easement, it would be in perpetuity.
In perpetuity.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
It would be in
We
perpetuity.
need that entrance forever.
okay.
And this is not without precedent. DOT has, particularly in locations where, like this, where they have removed a road, right? There was the old location, the new location. They end up with excess right of way that they're not utilizing. And that's actually the case with this
It
land.
appears that that's the
essentially
case.
Excess land.
We have real property looking into it, as well as DPW, Ryan from DPW as well. We're gonna have a meeting with the DOT to discuss this.
And we have had other cases where DOT has provided, 99-year easements or leases, or they have words that they use for this, but for lands that they're no longer occupying or using, that they have no vision to occupy or use, but that can be used for public purpose. So we've seen this happen in other places.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions or anything on that? Rest is okay.
And the other thing about that is we're also trying to find ways to mitigate traffic on the local road network by having this access off of 17 directly. We would essentially eliminate truck traffic
On River Road.
on River Road, right? So that's another strong reason in favor of doing this. So that's where we're working on that. So financing. So this sheet doesn't change a whole lot from time to time, but the topic that we're talking about does. So we're still focused on that the first two in this list. One is the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, and the other one is the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. These are combined application that's due at the end of the month of May. We've been driving towards an application now for the last several months. Number of different steps that have been conducted here at this committee, also by Fiscal Services, and eventually to the legislature. So just walking our way through this. On March 24th, as the chairman mentioned, a public hearing was conducted on the County Law 5A process, which is a process that's intended to inform the public about changes that may happen from a financial perspective with respect to the sewer district and the funding of a capital project. So we did conduct a hearing. I believe most everyone who's here was at that hearing, and there were a number of comments. So what I have to share with you is a comment in response from that hearing.
Thank you.
There were the same number of copies, so if I don't hand them, they should make their way around. This is not one thing I should note is this is not a transcript, this is not a hearing transcript, but this is based on, notes that were taken during the hearing, and responses. I prepared a draft, and then, county staff and county attorney reviewed the draft responses, and, each comment has a response. One of the things that you will see is that some of the comments ask the same question, so the responses are repetitive because a lot of people had the same or similar questions. We had a number of speakers. We also had an email that was submitted timely for the hearing. And then we had another email that was submitted after the hearing. The responses are also included here as well. And I don't know, Chairman, should we just walk through these?
Sure.
In brief
Yeah.
and encourage everyone to chime in.
Get on the record.
Sure. So, the hearing was conducted on March 25th. March 24th. It did begin a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties. I did a presentation to describe the contents of the map plan report and discuss particularly the cost impacts of the project on the typical user, which is considered a single-family home in the sewer district. Supervisor Cardone asked a question. He stated that the project is necessary and that so far he's followed the process. He wanted to ensure that there were considerations made for the village of Harriman as the host community for the wastewater treatment plant. And we do acknowledge that Harriman as the host community does experience a lot of what we call externalities, sort of the unintended secondary consequences of a public action because they're the host community. One of the biggest ones is the impact on the local road network. And as we just mentioned in the technical discussion, we're looking at ways to reduce that. And in addition, other comments that the community has made over time include truck traffic as well as odor control, and odor controls are part of the project to reduce those. So those considerations have been made, and I think we all appreciate the supervisor acknowledging Harriman's role in this project. A councilwoman, Mary Bingham from the town of Monroe, spoke as a resident, asked a number of different questions, one of which was, have the downstream communities been notified of the project? We conducted an environmental review. You all remember that process that went on over about a 2-year period, and the downstream communities were notified at every step along the way and had opportunities to comment, which they did. And their comments are part of the record of the secret process for this. So they certainly were notified. There was a question here about why the project cost was stated as being listed in December at 156 million. And that the hearing was discussed at 185 million. The question was, where did the extra 29 million come from? The $156 million value was what was listed on the intended use plan. It is a little bit of an aged figure. It's from several years ago. The $185 million figure is for the same project. It's just updated to take into consideration inflation and other factors that have increased the cost of the project in the ensuing several years. There was a question regarding expansion of the trunk sewers, which is the collection system that delivers wastewater to the treatment plant. When we conducted the environmental review for this project, we did identify the need to expand trunk sewers to match the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. That will be conducted as a future proceeding once there is engineering, surveying, and cost estimating done for that project. There was a question regarding South Blooming Grove selling capacity to Woodbury. This particular response says it's not relevant to this project. There is a more detailed response later on that we can go over. because several people asked that question. Why is the O&M considered constant? It must increase over time. That's an accurate statement. O&M, operation and maintenance costs do increase over time. However, for accounting law 5A proceeding, we are required to identify those costs in the first year of operation of the upgraded facility. So that is why it is shown as a point in time cost. There was a question with respect to which communities have intermunicipal agreements with the county for sewer service. And there's a fairly lengthy answer here, which was provided by the county's attorney's office. But essentially, the village of Curious Joel within its 1978 limits, the village of Harriman, the village of Monroe, and a portion of the town of Monroe are within the county sewer district. Other communities that have agreements with Orange County Sewer District Number 1 for allocations of wastewater treatment capacity dated variably from 1978, 1988, and 1995 are the town of Chester, town of Monroe, parts not included in Orange County Sewer District Number 1, town of Woodbury, and then which under operation of law and agreement upon the incorporation of the village of Woodbury, effectively transferred on June 1st of 2007 all rights to those obligations to the village of Chester, the town of Blooming Grove, which an operation of law and upon incorporation of the village of South Blooming Grove effectively transferred on January 1, 2008, all rights and obligations regarding wastewater treatment to the village of South Blooming Grove and the village of Woodbury for additional treatment capacity after its incorporation by a village by way of agreement dated February 11, 2011 and December 19, 2013. So that is a very exacting response.
Hopefully
Cost-
it was exhaustive, not exhaustive.
Exacting, perfect, exact, right? Cost improvements will impact senior citizens. What can be done about that is certainly acknowledged here, I believe, by this committee and by all of the members of the legislature who've been involved and by the staff that this is an expensive project. There's no question about that. That is the reason why we've spent a lot of time crafting as effective and efficient a project as we can and seeking low-cost financing grants to support reducing project costs to users. Mayor Dwyer from the Village of Monroe asked some questions regarding the build-out analysis that was requested during the environmental review. He's stating that analysis documented limited demands. Users not intending to use excess capacity shouldn't be charged for it. It's his statement. That's a sentiment we've heard quite a bit about. The response is that the provision of excess capacity to support future users does have a cost from both an operation and maintenance and capital perspective. It's the county's intent and legal obligation to ensure that capacity is available to users in the sewer district that demand it. Cost of a municipal district as well as cost saving, longevity improvements are spread out and shared by all properties in the sewer district as legally required, regardless of the intent of specific properties in the sewer district to use available capacity. It is also acknowledged that as new users come online, the cost to all users in the sewer district will be reduced. Trustee John Carl from the Village of Monroe reiterated that the village is essentially built out and should not fund the excess capacity. He mentions that the county should expand the sewer district to include all of the satellite and moon communities so that debt service can be assessed on an ad valorem basis to ensure that the cost of debt paid. The comment response is to refer to Mayor Dwyer's comments and responses, number of mechanisms that can be utilized to create revenue streams that support the cost of debt service for the project, including but not limited to district extensions and or municipal agreements with outside district users. Carol Sideropoulos, I think, I have that name right, from the Village of Monroe is a resident. She asked about the costs distributing to existing housing units only. What about new housing units they being built? Will they pay for the project? Same question for the expansion of Woodbury Common. And also, how is a sewer unit determined? So the costs provided reflect contributions from all users that are connected to operation and maintenance and debt, as well as properties in the county sewer district that have access to public sewers that are not connected and they pay debt service only. There are incidentally a couple of different categories of those users, but essentially, if they have access, they are funding debt. Future users, including homes, Woodbury Commons, will share the cost proportional to their use, which will result in reduced costs per unit. A sewer unit is equivalent of a single-family residence in the sewer district. Joyce Sloan, who is a resident of the village of South Blooming Grove, asked about how out-of-district properties can connect to the sewer system and who decides. The response is that properties outside desiring to utilize sewer treatment in the sewer district must be approved by the local municipality, who must be willing and able to provide access to such available sewer treatment capacity. It's the local municipality having agreements with the sewer district that decides such matters, such as the availability of capacity, subject to the availability of capacity in that municipality. What is a unit? As we discussed, a sewer unit is the equivalent of a single-family residence in the sewer district.
Excuse me, Mary Beth,
Yeah,
would it be helpful in the response to this to also explain how assignments of the total number of units are made to other than single-family residences? In other words, like a commercial or an industrial has multiple, is assigned multiple units based on whatever.
sure. Absolutely. Thank you. Expansion of the sewer treatment plant will allow dense housing that some people don't want. This is the comment. The response is the sewer district has no legal ability or role to decide what types of development seek access to available capacity. Local municipal land use laws and zoning control location, nature, and type of development that occurs in each community, including housing density. Another portion of this comment was that water use will increase as a result of expansion of the treatment plant. And there are already water problems. The community cannot connect to New York City water supply. And the response is that the sewer, the expansion of the sewer district treatment plant in and of itself does not increase water use. It will allow for increased wastewater treatment, which may be fueled by a variety of water-related functions, such as water conservation and additional water resources such as new wells or access to water resources such as New York City's water supply. Municipalities in Orange County have the legal ability to connect to New York City's aqueduct system, provided certain conditions are met. And then that was the conclusion of the public hearing at about 3:50 p.m. We also did receive 2 written comments. These were comments submitted by B.J. Mendelson, the publisher of the Monroe Gazette. These comments were timely with respect to the hearing. There is a comment that while there is little dispute that the need for an upgrade and eventual expansion concerning Orange County Sewer District Number 1, this process has not been handled. He's writing to ask for a vote to be delayed and the public be given appropriate time and opportunity to speak. The response is that there was no vote taken at the hearing, and the sewer project has been the subject of numerous public meetings with many opportunities for public input over the past 7 years. The request involves holding a public hearing and meetings with OCSD advisory committee during times when the public can attend and not in the middle of an afternoon on a work day. And the response is that no matter what time of day a public hearing or a meeting is conducted, it will be convenient for some, inconvenient for others. Some people work during day, some at night. Many people work Monday through Friday, a significant number of others work on the weekend. And a few people consider attending a meeting on a holiday. History has demonstrated that no appreciable difference in a meeting attendance is changes as a result of when the time or day is scheduled for meetings. There is then a statement regarding this committee that has demonstrated that it is unresponsive to letters and comments, and the chairman actively assists in the spread of disinformation. Any projections or estimates provided at hearing must be met with extreme pessimism. The response is that notwithstanding the inaccuracy of the premise, no response is warranted for ad hominem comments. Further comment goes on. I'm sorry.
I was just asking the chairman if he was fine with that response.
Yeah.
Despite overwhelming evidence and threats of lawsuit, OCSD and OCESF have informed municipalities of their intention to approve South Blooming Grove's deal with Sign on Property, a scheme where South Blooming Grove provides its excess sewage capacity to Simon via OCSD one. This would allow Simon to build its Woodbury Commons expansion. Evidence is clear. South Blooming Grove does not have excess capacity to give. Comment continues to say Orange County knows this and proceeds to go ahead with plans regardless, demonstrating that it does not listen to its constituents and the decisions rendered by the county government, its ESF department, and OCSD one's advisory committee are arbitrary and capricious at best, potentially illegal at worst. And then parenthetically, the comment states, we mention this because allegations of a promise made by County Executive Steve Newhouse to drop Orange County's lawsuit against South Blooming Grove in exchange for South Blooming Grove making a deal with Simon Properties. This arrangement should be and must be investigated by the legislature. End of the parenthetical comment. The response is that this issue is not related to the public hearing for the increase or improvement of the county's wastewater treatment plant. However, documented evidence demonstrates that the village of South Blooming Grove does have excess capacity over its allocated capacity. It's not presently being used. Finally, there has never been, nor is there now, any promise or other intent of the county executive to drop the county's lawsuit against the village of South Blooming Grove because of any arrangement with the Simon Properties or otherwise. The lawsuit will be decided upon its merits. The proposed assignment of available capacity by the village of South Blooming Grove to Simon Properties is a matter between these two entities. Legally, the village of South Blooming Grove has the right to assign its capacity, its excess capacity. The commenter continues, I will remind everyone who votes to approve the expansion and upgrade that elections have consequences, given that you are about to settle OCSD one residents and other users with a potential bill of $1,000 a year per household. This is absolutely something all of your opponents can and will run on, while County Executive Steve Newhouse likes to run on shrinking government and cutting taxes. What he fails to mention is that Orange County residents will save in taxes. They will make up tenfold in fees like the one you're about to approve. As stated previously, there was no vote taken at this public hearing and the statement is incorrect. Finally, given that the project will cost up to $186 million, if not more, by the time it's done, little discussion has been about how much Simon Property Group will pay for it. This is an additional comment from this email. The information required for the County Law 5A proceeding and hearing is to identify the cost of the project, including operation and maintenance and debt service to the typical property in the county sewer district in the first year of operation, is the response. In the case of Orange County Sewer District number 1, typical property as documented through research of real property tax records as a single family home. The commenter continues to state that alongside the town of Palm Tree and South Blooming Grove, Woodbury Commons is one of the project's primary beneficiaries. While the OCSD one committee has shared overly optimistic at best projections concerning the availability of federal funding, they've discussed little about how much Simon Property Group will pay for this expansion. It's worth noting that in 2024, Simon Property Group offered shareholders a $2 billion stock buyback. If Simon Property funded the entirety of the OCSD one project, they would still have over $1.8 billion left to offer their shareholders for the buyback program. Response is that the information required for the County Law 5A proceeding is to identify the cost of the project, including O&M and debt service to the typical property in the county sewer district in the first year of operation. In the case of the County Sewer District number 1, the typical property is documented through research of real property tax records as a single family home. And furthermore, the district cannot and should not target individual property users for adverse treatment. The discussions of grant and low cost financing is based on the best available information at the time of the conduct of the public hearing and is representative of realistic financing scenarios based on other similar projects being conducted in New York State at this time. That is the response. And the final comment from this email is, so clearly Simon Property has cash on hand. Just ask the Simon family, who are currently valued $11 billion by Forbes. So I'll ask again, as will every resident of OCSD 1 who is settled with a bill of $1,000 a year for 30 years, how much is Simon Property Group expected to contribute to OCSD 1 expansion, upgrading and expansion project? The committee has not said. And the response is the same as prior response. The information required for the County Law 5A proceeding is to identify the cost of the project, including O&M and debt service to the typical property in the county sewer district in the first year of operation. In the case of Orange County Sewer District number 1, Typical property is documented through research of property, real property records as a single-family home. The district cannot and should not target individual property users for adverse treatment.
Before we leave that, could I just, I guess ask a question, make a comment? On page 4, I guess it's the third paragraph up that starts out further despite overwhelming evidence. The second sentence starts with describing it as a scheme. That's your response. I don't know whether scheme is the best word to use. It kind of has a negative connotation.
No, that was not.
That's-
our
That's
response.
his.
It's
Oh,
his-
that's his.
That's his comment. Further, despite
Oh, I'm
overwhelming
sorry.
evidence,
Okay.
that's his comment.
That's his.
However, you will see sometimes the way that statutes are put together, it's et cetera, as a scheme. It's not mentioned in the derogatory
Right.
sense, it's just the scheme of putting it together, the manner that it's put together. But he didn't mean it in that fashion.
Correct.
And Mary Beth, just
Yes.
one other thing too is when it's mentioned a few times about the potential bill of $1,000 per year
Mhm.
from all of the presentations that you did. That's kind of like a worst case.
That's correct.
That's with getting zero financing.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Just,
on page 4, I want to go back about the comment in which you were involved in. And I'd like to ask our council, whether the councilman has,
what page, Michael?
page 4, with a comment about your involvement, committee's involvement. And Rick asked, are you satisfied with that? And I didn't know what we meant, but I kind of, my hair went on the back of the neck, and I'm thinking, well, should we be? From a legislative perspective, should we make sure we have a more legal response to that comment than just ad hominem arguments? Just for our own sake, I don't know if it makes any difference. What your thought is legally, it's beyond my.
My feeling
I'm
is.
thinking
okay,
of,
I'm
that's
sorry.
all, no, that's all.
No, I actually weighed in on this proposed response. And I think that it doesn't do this committee or the county any good to try to go tit for tat to try to identify how wrong he is on so many levels. So I decided that the best way is simply to say that his premise is inaccurate and no response is warranted for the ad hominem comments.
And
And
just another question, which Mary Beth helped me get. Again, I'm trying to remember, the comment from the same last questioner had to do with, could we charge Woodbury Common more money? Because they're now using it for commercial purposes, if I wrote it down correctly. And, I heard your answer, it's clear. But what I'm circling around on is that a couple of years ago, it may not have anything to do with it, the county went into agreement with a developer in Cures Joel. If they needed capacity, they needed to put in the pipeline, and pay for it themselves. And that was an agreement we reached. Is that the same thing, or
No.
different? Just help me, I just wanted
Apples and
to.
oranges. That's something where they had desired to have something more than what anybody else was in line to receive. And there is an ability to go ahead and negotiate at that time if they're going to provide something of value to the district. And that's what they did. They actually, when I wasn't part of that, but my understanding is that they were the ones that offered to go ahead and do this in order to secure their.
That's right, I understand. I just want to make sure, because it seems to me, in the case of Woodbury Common, we all know how it's growing and building as business goes. I can.
No, the
So we just, we think about how do we define the units that they have now? And what about expansion and growth? Do they have to come back to us again and again because we need that? Or how do we do that? Because that could be something beyond what we thought about now, and they need to pay more.
Well, I'll let
I don't know,
Anthony
just-
probably talk more about specifically how you come up with those types of units
Okay.
and how it would affect somebody like a Woodbury Common versus a residential single-family unit. But that wasn't really his question. His question was that this is a rich commercial client, not a poor commercial client. It's based upon the wealth of a particular property owner, and that somehow we should be charging people that are worth more more in sewer. And that's not how we do that in any manner. Income tax is one way it's done, but it's not done in the context of a sewer district and what you charge.
And this actually loops back to Barry's question about describing how we do multiple, right? So if your single family home is the lowest common denominator, and then when you use more of the resource, you pay proportionally more associated with your benefit. If this is a benefit district, so they will pay more because they are using more than a typical home. So we can certainly describe that process in here to illuminate that. But it has to do with the benefit, not with the wealth of any particular user.
It's the actual use. We have a schedule of unit of use that we have in our sewer use ordinance, which covers commercial properties, industrial facilities, single family home, two family homes, so on and so forth.
So Anthony, would it be fair to say that if a large commercial enterprise used 50 times what a single family unit would use, that they would be charged 50 times what the single family?
Yes, correct. That's correct.
And maybe that's what we should do, is just attach that schedule to the end of this.
I think the indication here by the writer was that they have such wealth, maybe they should, have a concession of, funding the entire project, whereas their need really is not that high. I mean, I monitor Woodbury Commons on a regular basis monthly, and they're probably using about 70,000 gallons a day.
I'm not in this person's corner. I just want to make sure as a committee we're clear on that, because it seems to me, I'm jaded in my thinking, you guys may be better than I am. I was on a planning board in Woodbury when we started the project. It was very small. We thought it was like the Apollo Mall, it's all, whatever the name is.
That was
And so I thought it was gonna be a little strip mall. We didn't care, we don't give no money. Next thing you know, hey, look what it is, and if I'm guessing right, we can put this thing in place, finally put the 9 million gallons in place, and all of a sudden they announce they're gonna do something huge on the property. And do we have the right to then go back and say, well, that's above what we thought about, we want to renegotiate?
But
I don't know, just thinking.
generally, the changed circumstances requires a district to reevaluate.
Okay.
And we know that the 6 to 9 is not going to be the end of the road, right? Because not just Woodbury Common, which, as Anthony is saying, doesn't really represent as large a percentage as people really think it does. But if there are developments that come in, or other high water use commercial users, which at this point in time is not Woodbury Common, then you may start to use up that excess capacity sooner. So you have to put in place sooner than later your next steps on expansion. And so we'll just keep going in that fashion.
And so maybe the last thing is, what if Woodbury Common could be any development they mentioned, or to build a hotel on that property, 500-room hotel?
Well, Woodbury Common, that's in the plans, as you know, to potentially do that. That increases capacity, and right now, they don't have the ability to hook up with Woodbury's excess capacity. The reporting is that district isn't part of it, and doesn't need to be and ought not to be. But the reporting is that the Village of South Boone Grove is entering into discussions with them to allow them access to enough excess capacity that South Boone Grove has that will simply satisfy the expansion of the retail units, which has a much lower use, and it would not include the amount that they are talking about would not include the amount necessary for the hotel.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You want to add anything to that?
Unless you want to put some numbers on the table, I just don't want to add.
What you can say, what is
I mean, the
the retail expansion is?
Their immediate need right now is 15,000 gallons for the retail. The future need is for a hotel, which would be 22,000 gallons. It's still, overall scheme of things, it's not a heavy lift, but I understand, with the amount of capacity that's limited right now, there's that concern.
I just want to add one other thing too, though, that Mr. Golden had a good point with, was that, we're going 6 to 9, but this project, for the last 7 years, discussion and the new technologies that are out there are allowing it to be modular type system with the sequential batching where we're going to 6 to 9 in this one. And then once we do it and we do the longevity projects, as Mr. Golden said, if the demand is there, that may be moved up sooner.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know. None of us can look and see when the second expansion would go, but it's not an expansion from A to Z on it. It's gonna be, utilized on what we're already laying the groundwork.
And this committee and the district was wise enough, and I certainly don't include me in this because I wasn't here at that time,
You'd be wiser. Get off the record.
is that you've done the environmental review for that future expansion, so you wouldn't have to start all over again with a new environmental review that's already been conducted.
Thank you. All right, Mary Beth.
Okay, so we had one final set of comments that were submitted by email. These were submitted after the close of the hearing, although we generally provide responses to all comments. And so we've provided responses to these comments. This person, her name is Bonnie Ron, and I believe she was resident of South Vernon Grove. She spoke to me after the hearing, but she didn't put that in her email. She stated that at the public hearing, Mary Beth Bianconi made a presentation during which she said something to the effect of as taxpayers would be getting some of our tax dollars back with grants for the Harriman sewage treatment plant. However, she said it would cost each homeowner using the plant $500 to $1,000 a year for 30 years. Am I correct? It sounds like an oxymoron. We get our money back, but it costs us. And this is a good question. So the response is that the source of funding for grants and programs on both the federal and state level is predominantly tax revenue, although there are other sources. Applying for and securing grants to support the proposed capital project is a way to recapture some of the taxes that have been paid by local by local property owners. It is not a repayment per se, rather securing grant funds reduces costs to users and is a way for users to take back some of the value of taxes paid in the past. The next portion of her question was if only some of Orange County is continuing to allow building, why shouldn't they be the ones paying for it, not all of Orange County residences? And the answer is only properties that are benefited by the sewer system, those that are connected to the sewer system or that could connect will repay debt, and only users connected to the sewer system pay for operation and maintenance costs. It's inaccurate to state that all Orange County residents will pay for the project. Next question is related to many of the questions we were just discussing. What about commercial structures? How would they be charged? I understand that Woodbury Commons was requesting access to South Groom Grove's capacity for 5 years. The village of South Groom Grove doesn't have the capacity, plus they are greenlighting multiple projects, which state that they are requiring.
There's a typo.
Yeah, I see that. State that they are requiring municipal water and sewer all the time, including 14 projects in one meeting. Included in this group was one of the projects which stated they would require 26,000 plus gallons of water sewer.
There's also two
See
periods.
that. Copied from the email. Is this kind of wild overbilling what you are asking everyone to support? This response is actually a combination of prior responses because the comments are similar. So the first one is the information that's required for the county law 5A proceeding, which is to the typical property, which is a single family home. The next portion of this response is the district cannot and should not target individual properties for adverse treatment. And in addition, the issue regarding the village of South Blooming Grove, the excess capacity, this is the same response was provided before regarding South Blooming Grove's ability to work with other users, and that the county's no way changing its legal position with respect to South Blooming Grove. So this is a recitation of the prior responses. And even though the number of bedrooms is what is used to determine how many gallons per day would be used in a particular household, we all know that it is people, not rooms, that are a factor into this prediction. This is the comment. A household of 1 or 2 people uses far less water than 8 or 10. She goes on to say she's not anti-Semitic. because she is Jewish and it is not a religious issue, water is the issue. And then she parenthetically states that what happened in Phoenix during drought, when a nearby development was told that they could no longer have access to the city's water supply. And then the response is actually, again, copied from the prior responses because it's the same questions regarding what is required of the county law 5A proceeding for the typical property and the district not targeting property users for adverse treatment, and the fact that the expansion of the sewer district treatment plant does not in and of itself increase water use. And then there's a continued discussion about water use, that municipalities have access to new water resources, they can employ water conservation, they have access to New York City's water supply system. And then her question was, when and how can commenters expect a response? And the answer is that responses are provided in a second. And then she states, final question, in my community, we have a septic system, would we be expected to contribute to this? That was unclear, and this response is copied from before. Only properties that are benefited by the sewer system, those that are connected or that could connect will repay debt, and only connected users pay for operation and its costs in addition to debt. Those were all the comments.
Great job.
So we will make these, I think that the primary change to make here is to attach the sewer units so that it can be understood how users are charged, and to clean up some of these
Is
grumblers.
that like just for some information on this last question?
Excuse me, I have to excuse myself for a virtual meeting at 3, so I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton.
Yep.
I think it may be a good idea, Bill can weigh in on it as well. There may need to be a clarification to the response to include that there are properties that are not, they have the ability to connect as long as the sewer mains are extended. We
Right,
have fringe areas within the district that are gonna pay on this capital debt for the $185 million. I think that just needs to be
okay,
clarified.
okay, we can definitely do that. I believe she lives
She's in Bloomington.
very
so
far
she's-
away, so
so
it's
she
for
doesn't have
her
the-
specifically.
For her area specifically, but for the district, if it were five, I think there should be a clarification.
Now, Anthony, are you also gonna put something in there about, Barry brought up about the units
We're-
versus
Well-
individual home plus a business, how you?
We'll add that schedule
Yeah.
to this. We'll
Okay.
attach it to the document. So then it'll all be right there for everybody to see.
Okay.
And then I think addresses both.
And just along that line, in her one question at the bottom of page 6, she indicates that the number of bedrooms is used to determine the unit value.
And it's not, it's the actual amount of water.
Single family.
Because it's all
home,
metered.
It's a single family home. You don't do it.
All metered.
Well, it's not metered,
It's not.
not water metered.
No, but a single
No,
family home is a
no.
single family home.
So that's for the district. The out of district users may have their own system, which could potentially rely on the bedroom.
Right.
Which they do, they have their own system.
So we can expand on that.
They're probably one of the truer payers in terms of it being assigned based on the volume of sewage that they put into the system.
There's a bit more discrepancy perhaps in the Orange County Sewer District number 1.
And the Rick's here, right, the county sewer district does not determine how users outside of the district are charged. That is a
Absolutely.
decision that is made by each individual municipality. So to the extent that people in the outside user communities have questions about that, that is a local determination, and they should talk to their local elected board, whether it's a village or town. So Chairman, the,
Just one more thing, in the comment, somehow, it was talking about the budget process, the next steps for the April meeting of this committee and fiscal services, yes.
just going on.
I guess the question, Barry, is it on your agenda for this?
We're gonna discuss that now.
Oh, okay,
The
As
resolution,
of now, I have not had a chance to discuss the agenda with Dean.
okay, fine, that's okay,
but I'll add a little something
Go
there.
ahead.
I think that, Joe, it's working its way through the different departments for signatures.
That's my understanding, yeah.
And I was gonna bring that up also because, then we were gonna let Chairman Cheney know that this is coming for his discussion when he is on the phone about his agenda. Because this needs to move out of here. And
I don't have a problem with having it come forward.
Yeah, Eric wanted me to mention, Eric Donegan wanted me to mention that in regard to this, that it is going through the system with the expectation that it will hopefully be on the Physical Services Committee meeting
Yeah.
on Monday.
I heard from Eric also, and I hope he feels better, but he had everything covered and said he would be with us.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. And Joe also.
So that is, you all stole my thunder, because that was the end of this discussion, was that, Eric asked us to make sure that you all understood that there was a proposed resolution that is entitled approving proposed increase and improvement to the facilities, of the Orange County Sewer District Number 1 pursuant to County Law Section 268. And it walks through the process that we have conducted with respect to map plan report, conducting hearing, the notice of the cost to the typical property owner, and then resolves that the map plan report, as well as the information and evidence presented at the public hearing, proposed increase and improvement to the Harriman wastewater treatment plant is in the public's interest. Further, the proposed increase and improvement to the Harriman wastewater treatment plant are necessary to address equipment and structural components of the Harriman wastewater treatment plant that are aged and past their service life, to meet updated regulatory requirements and to respond to increasing demand for additional wastewater treatment capacity at the Harriman wastewater treatment plant, and then further authorizing the administrative head of the Orange County Sewer District to proceed under County Law Section 262. So this resolution is sort of the penultimate step in this process at this point to get through these committees and the legislature, and then we will be, can you remind me, we do already have a resolution to make the application to the Office of State Controller?
We have a resolution authorized or directing that the application be prepared.
Prepared.
There needs to be a second resolution from this legislature finding that the contents are accurate.
Okay, so that can happen in
June.
June. Okay,
Yes,
thank
that's my
you.
anticipation.
Thank you. Okay, that's what I wanted clarification on the schedule. Thank you. So what we were just talking about is, now that we've done all of this, our next step in the process. So at the May legislature meeting, in a perfect world, this resolution, finding that the project is in the public's interest, will be adopted. Then the 85A, which is the Office of the Comptroller review process, application will be prepared by your office?
Well, no, the application,
By
By your
us,
office, yeah.
okay. That was another question I had.
Well-
Who's preparing the application?
obviously we'll work together.
All right,
And
so,
that's-
but I got the ball. I just need to
And
know
that's
if I have the ball.
after May- that's
Okay.
after May's legislative
Right.
session.
So we will do that in fairly short order because we will want that to go through these committees in May, right? Through these two committees in May, that 85A application, the sufficiency of which is going to be assessed, right?
Mhm.
Sufficient and then submit.
Yes, submit in June.
And then, so then that will be on the June agenda for the legislature. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Now, Mary Beth, Michael questioned before about the two steps, and those are the two steps,
Mhm.
right? And one is it's found that it's in the public interest. And once we do that, then it needs to go to the controller's office, that's 85A.
That's the 85A proceeding, yes.
And now, do you think that they will have a quick enough turnaround time to get it back in time for June, or?
So the way the process is gonna work out is we will make our submission, our application for financing at the end of May. We will not have that information.
Right.
Which is fine.
Okay,
That's not uncommon that we would not have that information.
back.
Correct.
Control.
Correct,
Okay.
right. So because their process is several months long, they will ask us a number of questions. Everyone here needs to be prepared. We will get a comment letter. They will ask us questions. It's their job. It's what they do. We are expecting that. So
The earliest response approval would be September or October.
I would assume, right,
That's the earliest.
correct. It's a documentary process. They're list of requirements, I believe starts at A, is alphabetical, and I think it goes through double Q.
That's for
I
the
believe-
attorney's affirmation, yeah.
So it's long, there's a lot of material that we have to prepare, and that's why I was asking how we were going to, because we can definitely, lead putting it together and then work together on all the documentation. We have almost all of the information ourselves,
That's true.
in our office. So we do a lot of these, so we will get working on that, so that we have that together. Just so everybody understands what the Office of the State Comptroller is doing. They establish thresholds, their financial thresholds, for town sewer districts and water districts and county water and sewer districts. They do not do this for cities or villages. Long story as to why, they only do it for counties and towns. Every year, they establish a financial threshold. For town water and sewer districts, it's an absolute number. It's if the cost of a proposed improvement, operation and maintenance, and debt service combined in the first year exceeds that number. If it goes over the threshold, you have to go through one of these review proceedings, an 85A proceeding. For county sewer districts, it's based on the absolute change in cost, right?
Yes,
So if you go from $100 to $150, your change in cost is 50, they establish what that number is. If you're over that number, then you have to go through this review proceeding. We are over that number. So the purpose of the review proceeding is for the comptroller's office to ensure that the proceeding that we conducted was conducted in conformance with law, and that just to backstop that this finding in the public's interest is objectively in the public's interest. There's a little tiny bit of history here. There was a time when these types of proceedings were done, interesting conversation we're having here, for the benefit of commercial users and to the detriment of residents. So this OSC proceeding is to actually backstop and make sure that that's not the case, that these are public proceedings that are for the benefit of all. That's right. So that's the purpose of them.
I just have another quick question regarding, we're putting these grants in by May 31st. May 30th. And there's been talk at other meetings about other opportunities that would arise in the summertime. So if we're coming down onto that date at the end of May 30th, do we have any kind of idea of what's going to come out, what ones are available, how many,
So
things like that that we could
page
take a look at?
2 of these are the other programs.
Oh, these are, okay.
These other two. So, and there may be others.
These are the ones that may come out.
But these
in
are the
summer.
ones that we're expecting to come out in the summer. The Water Infrastructure Improvement Act, and it's WIA for short. It's a grant. We're not sure exactly when the applications will be due. The requirements are the same as the SRF program that we're doing in May, so it's kind of a duplicate. They typically have been due in the summer, although this is a state grant program. It is part of the budget. In case anybody listens to the news, the budget has not been adopted yet. This is a very popular program. We definitely see it continuing in the budget, and as far as we know, there will not be any substantial programmatic changes. It's simply timing. When will it happen? This is 25% of net costs after the application of all grants, up to $25 million in $5 million annual increments. So it's good money, right? It would be a good grant for us to work on. It's aimed at advancing necessary projects that may not match traditional scoring objectives. So that's kind of a nice program. The other program that we are looking at, and there may be others, but these are sort of the big hit parade for these types of projects, is something called the Water Quality Improvement Program. It's in its 24th year, is also part of the budget. That's one of the reasons why we don't know exactly when it will be due. It is a very popular program. The requirement is simply that you have an engineering report, which you do. You actually have several to pick from. We would use the basis design report that we just completed. It's up to $10 million in grant funding for construction. It's intended for projects that with direct improvement to water quality in stressed watersheds. So we sort of check that box, right? So we're in the Ramapo, we know it's 3D listed, right? The impaired water bodies list. We have a speedies permit that's quite stringent, that has these requirements for total solids, chlorides, among other things. So that one's another one, and that's a DEC run program. And that's another one where, you know, we've certainly made the program folks aware that this project is out there and that we would be submitting applications. So it is also part of the state budget, it is state funded. And that's where we would be seeking those funds. There may be some other programs that we're always looking at programs. The reality of a project on this scale is that we need to look at programs that give us, you know, not $500,000, right? They give us 10 million, 15, 20, 25, up to $50 million is what really moves the dial on a project like this. The grant agencies it costs them money to administer grants. Their job is to give the money out and have it have an impact. So they try, and they do coordinate these days, all these agencies talk to each other and they try to make sure that their investment of grant funds is impactful. So they would rather see leverage. Once you secure sort of your baseline funding and your initial grant, they will look to see how do you leverage that with other grant funds to reduce the cost to the typical user of a single family home. You all will remember, we also discussed that as part of our application process here for May 30th, we've been working on something called hardship application, which is to show that given the economic characteristics of the residents of the district and the service area, we have to include everybody, that the cost of the project is necessary and it's overly burdensome to the users. So we have a demonstration that somewhere around 56% of the users are negatively impacted by this project in terms of their economic ability to pay. So that's another factor that goes in here. So we submitted that application 2 weeks ago. We'll be following up with the Environmental Facilities Corporation on that application, ensure that they have the information that they need. The good news is these are not one bite at the apple programs. These are all programs where you make an initial application and then they communicate with you any missing information, items that they need. So it's not like, okay, you did it and now you can't ever add anything to the record. They're actually pretty iterative. They ask a lot of questions. We respond with a lot of answers. That's the way these programs work. So that's where we're at.
Okay, good. Any questions? No, Chairman? You good? Okay, well, that was a lot. Great meeting today. Thank you for those answers and we will move it forward and meeting adjourned. Oh, one last thing, Betsy, do we need to vote to move this to physical?
No.
No, okay. So when you have, if, so you're working it through, or you're bringing them around the signatures? or-
I'm not, no.
No.
My understanding is that it is being brought.
Eric,
Someone from EFNS.
EFNS.
Okay,
Mhm.
good, as long as they're
And we can follow up on that and make sure that it's wending its way through the process. Chairman Cheney, would you like to be present at that meeting on Monday with the services? It's up to you.
Look, the county for guidance on that. I mean, it's possible there are questions that are going to come up. We'll put you first on the agenda.
It's whatever you guys. Here you go. You need-
I think it would be a good.
As do I.
take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
3:30.